Hello and welcome to A Shark's Perspective. So, how about those emails? We don't think nearly enough about somewhat of a legacy channel in the acquisition space, but it still delivers like a workhorse. But are you sending the same kind of emails that you sent before? Marketers are scared to send a lot of emails today, except the ones that tell me how much they care about me, their customers, and the advice they copied from the CDC on washing my hands. So, are you sending the ones that won't get opened in a, post coronavirus world, or are you sending the ones that are open because of the contextual relevancy of the value that you offer? Jay Schwedelson is the president and CEO of Worldata and a member of the board of directors of the Direct Marketing Association. And on this episode, we'll discuss email for acquisition, open rates and inboxing, data, subject lines, personalization, animated GIFs, emojis, funnel filling, baloney, spam, and a lot more. So let's tune in to an email expert with a shark whose email is kenneth@asharksperspective.com on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Jay, thank you so much for joining us today on A Shark's Perspective. If you would, tell us a little bit about your background and your career to date.
Thanks, Shark. My company is called Worldata. We've been in business for about 40 years, and I'm the CEO of the firm. And I've been here for well over 20 years. And we specialize in acquisition marketing programs, a lot of that related to email. We work with about 30 out of the Fortune 100 companies on the planet. And beyond just Worldata, we also have another division of our company called subjectline.com, which is a free resource we put out for the email industry where people go to check their subject lines for free. We just actually checked our 8 millionth subject line, so that's pretty fun. And we really are very focused in the email space and have been for a real long time, and that's what we do.
So what was it about email that drove your interest? I mean, were you an email fanatic and that's why you went to work for them, or did you become one because of it?
You know, it's interesting. My Worldata started, it wasn't called Worldata, but it started in my family's garage over 40 years ago. My folks, they were school teachers, and they started this company in our garage. And obviously over 40 years ago, there wasn't email. And it started out as one of the original direct mail list compilers. And I just grew up around direct marketing my entire life. And as direct mail really started to head in, one direction, I was enamored by emails, enamored by what it could do, and so I took the business into more of a digital focus than email, and that's where we are today. And it's been a great ride. We're about 100-person organization, and it's been a lot of fun.
So when you go to talk to companies about email acquisition today, what is sort of the temperament or the conversation with looking at that as a channel? Again, I know you look at all different services. When you go in and talk to somebody specifically about email, you don't hear that pitch nearly as much as you do talking about general digital marketing or, paid search or being on TV or things like that, or social media, of course. You don't hear of email being discussed nearly enough, at least in my opinion, as an acquisition strategy.
You're 100% right, and there has always been a stigma as it relates to email, especially email acquisition.
Yeah.
I've seen a tide shift in the last 2 or 3 years in terms of major brands being very interested to talk about third-party email programs and email acquisition, and I believe the reason is when these marketers take a step back and they look at what's really driving sales and revenue from all the different channels they're working in, email is a workhorse for B2B and B2C companies, and they recognize that. And without a doubt, the one thing everybody has in common is their lists are never large enough. No matter how big your brand is, your organization, you always feel we're not covering the entire marketplace for who we want to serve.
Mm-hmm.
And so there can be a very good dialogue about, well, how does email acquisition work? How do I do it conservatively? How do I avoid, the underbelly of the internet and really not send things to people that they don't want? And there are ways to do that. And that's what we try to specialize in. And the reason we stay in the lane of email is so many people are focused on the shiny object of social and search and display and all these different things, that email's kind of left to the side, and there's not nearly enough players in it, not nearly enough vendors, sophisticated vendors in it. So that's really why we try to focus there and to try to carve out our niche.
Yeah, it's a great point. I tend to think of email, and having been a big fan of it and used it in a lot of campaigns over a lot of years, that it's almost kind of a conversation that you have with people about targeting versus reach. And they don't understand that they've been building and cultivating these first party data lists and audiences, and hopefully developing them into fans of your brand. But then they get the allure of being able to reach 1,000 times that many on a paid search ad that will get nowhere near the engagement that an email would. But why do you think then that people are looking at it differently today? Is it because of, in a more positive way, is it because of the attribution and being able to see where it's coming as part of the mix?
Well, attribution is a beautiful thing, right? It is truly a direct response channel, right? So they're able to measure everything that they do. But people are looking for opportunities outside of Facebook, outside of Google, of where they could drive strong ROI.
Mm-hmm.
As Facebook ratchets up their pricing, makes it more expensive, and as keywords become that much more competitive in terms of pricing for people, they're looking for channels where they could drive return on marketing investment, and email is a natural fit. And although email can be looked at as a legacy channel, right? And it isn't, and it's at the forefront of things. The difference between email and social and search, which are going up in price, email actually comes down in price,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because it's the forgotten channel. So as these marketers are seeing their cost per acquisition get more expensive in these digital channels, they're able to look at email and say, wait a minute, my cost per acquisition can actually be lower and going lower. And so they're looking to invest the time to understand it better. And so it's not for everybody, but it is for most major marketers now.
No, completely agree. Then, how do you recommend somebody build their campaign with other channels to use email as part of an overall strategy mix?
Well, when it comes to email, what I always like to tell somebody is that the first thing we have to look at is how does your email campaigns perform, your first-party email campaigns, when you
Yes,
email to your own existing base.
great point.
Because the secret is a third-party campaign will never do better than a first-party campaign, right? You're never going to email prospects and have it outperform your current customer base. And so to manage expectations, if you're not happy with what you're getting out of what you're sending to your customers, don't put your toe in the water into prospect email, because you need to figure out the secret sauce for your own data first. And then use that metric as a baseline and say, okay, I'm going to discount off of that and say, we're going to be 30%, 40% lower in terms of what we're going to be able to accomplish with third-party data. And then you could back into what is a cost per acquisition number that you feel comfortable with, because you need to manage your internal expectations before you just jump into a new channel.
And I could not agree with you more. I don't know one time that I've ever bought anything that I wasn't somewhat familiar with, or had some sort of relationship with somebody, just to get a bland email from somebody. Even in the B2B realm, where somebody's trying to introduce their product or software, or their lead gen strategy plan, if I'm not part of that conversation and have no context around it, it's rare to never that I buy anything. But when you work with these large, massive brands, do they always adhere to that as well? Because I do seem like I still get a lot of, I'm not going to necessarily call them spam, but messages that came from a third party list.
Yeah, the brands, the mega brands are interesting because they look at email as another touch point,
Yeah,
right? They look at email and they're like, okay, we need to be everywhere. So the massive brands, the Fortune 100 brands, these guys almost look at email as part of their overall branding mechanism. It's the mid-market guys, the guys that are in companies that are like 1,000 to 5,000 employees. These are the guys that really are the ones who are focused on the ROI of the emails that they are sending out, and they can do incredibly well. I mean, the B2B guys, pushing out webinars, white papers, industry
exactly.
reports, those offers are killer. On the B2C side, again, you could have great offers where you're trying to drive to actual sale, or you could have other types of content. And content is king as it relates to getting that top of the funnel and that mid funnel filled up. And if you don't have good content or you don't have strong offers, then you can't do email. You're only as good as what it is that you're offering out. I mean, obviously, my job is to make sure who we're emailing out to, the lists and the data are going to be the right people, responsive people that want to receive this stuff. But once they open up that message, it really is reliant on the brand and that offer to make sure that we're going to get them to that destination page.
Well, then, how do you recommend the frequency of communications that come out, because so many of these guys, whether they're mid-market or major brand name brands, seem to send just an abundance of emails today. And I don't know if it's just bad automation or bad planning, but I'll give you an example. There is a service that I've fired as a service. I anticipated that they would send me some emails to try to romance me back, if you will. But I've gotten well over 200 emails in the last, I've got a folder, I kind of keep up with them and use them as an example in presentations. But in the last 6 months, it's well over 200 emails that I have sitting in a box that I keep building. And it just seems like a lot of the frequency, and it's a broader subject. I don't mean trying to necessarily, the email strategy to bring someone back, but it just seems like there's so many examples where the frequency, somebody's just taking the cap off and says, just send as many as you want.
Frequency is an interesting thing because there's two different sides to that. One side is, believe it or not, people don't send out enough. I don't mean that in your example. That's obviously extreme, sure. And that's terrible. That's terrible. But a lot of times we're dealing with marketers, and they're going to have an offer, right? They've come up with the greatest offer, and they're going to send out an email. And they go, okay, we sent out the email.
Right.
We didn't get as much response as we want, right? And I go, that's not email marketing. Email marketing is not a one-touch program. I go, when you have an offer, you want to minimally be sending out 3 emails within a 2-week period of time to promote that offer. You're going to introduce the offer with the first email. Your second email, you change the subject line, say, hey, time's running out. And your third email closes the deal and say, this is your last chance. That's email marketing.
Yes.
Right? You have to have a cycle for your offers. Now, the other side of it is being super annoying and not segmenting. Right? So you want to segment the data that you're sending to. The people that are engaged, that are buying from you, that are engaged with you, you're allowed to have more frequency as long as you stay relevant because these people like you. The people who are not engaging with you, there's only so much of a threshold that you can keep communicating to these people because they don't care about you. They don't want to hear from you, and all you're doing is not only annoying people, but you're creating a boat anchor on your overall email ability to get into the inbox. Because by annoying these people and then flagging you as spam, they're going to drag down all the emails you're sending out to all the people that do like you. So you need to segment, send to the right people at the right time. But you do also need to push your offers and close the deal. So it's kind of like I talk out of both sides of my mouth. You're not sending enough and you're sending too much, but it really depends on the situation.
No, that's a fantastic clarification. I agree completely because I use the same thing when I talk about sometimes with TV ads. I've worked with clients that they'll run a TV ad and then go stare at their phones and wonder why the phone hadn't just lit up all day long because they ran one ad. And it's the same with any type of campaign. It's got to be a pretty organized structure point. I think I've gotten to the point with a lot of bad emails, maybe that one client, I've just got to spam them away to get them to stop. I've tried unsubscribing before, but I start using that example way too much is basically me yelling at kids to get out of the yard. But it is such an interesting topic for all marketers to truly figure out how to integrate that as part of a multi-touch strategy. So then let's dive in a little bit more to email schematics and how to best create those emails that get people to look at them. How do you recommend that we sell in our emails? What's the kind of advice you give to people, whether it's copy, structure, the body of the email? What are the things you really recommend that we look for today?
Well, it's interesting. There's pre-coronavirus and then there's the current situation. So let's talk about pre-coronavirus first. One of the reasons that I started the site subjectline.com was I really felt that if you don't get somebody to open up your email, who actually cares about what's in your email? It's so critical to nail that subject line. And it seems like it's, so often we'll deal with a client and they'll have the greatest offer. They'll have the greatest email creative and they send it over, say, we want to get this out. And they'll say, what's the subject line? And in under 3 seconds, they write something without even thinking about it. And that's completely backwards, right? So using that subject line, the 2 most important things you could do in regards to getting it opened are creating urgency and exclusivity. And what I mean by that is if you got an email and it said, check out our great offer, and then there was another version of the email in the subject line that says, check out our great offer, ends today.
Right.
Which one are you more likely to open? You're going to open up the one that has the urgency, right? And if you're sending out an email and it's not a newsletter, it has an offer, don't send it out if there's not some form of urgency. There's some sort of time element to your offer. whether it's B2B or B2C. So that urgency is the number one most important thing you can have as it relates to an email marketing campaign. The second most important thing that you could have within that subject line to really drive the performance is exclusivity.
Mm-hmm.
Exclusivity. And what I mean by exclusivity is it's not for everybody. This is for our best customers. This is just for you. This is for HR professionals. This is for finance professionals. Whatever it is, that sense of exclusivity makes the person feel that it's not just for everybody, it's for me. And if you can combine the two, just for you ends today, home run, you're going to get the open rates, you're going to get the performance that you want on every campaign.
Yeah, a dash of FOMO, I always recommend to make certain that people feel like they don't want to miss out on that opportunity. But to your point, I find often too that it's hard for a lot of companies to feel comfortable about adding exclusivity because they're afraid they're going to alienate some people. And I'm not certain why they do that, but you see that on a lot of consumer good restaurants offers where they'll offer it to a very broad group. And I don't, so broad that it could be applied to everybody. And I don't even think they've niched down enough on that. It's still taking a buckshot approach to what should be a, for lack of a better phrase, sniper attack. Then kind of elaborate on how you're seeing that during and post COVID.
Yeah, so COVID's been interesting. We've been doing a lot of research over the last few weeks about what the impact has been, about what people want to see in their emails. And what we've seen is, number one, urgency has to be a lot more subtle. You
Yes.
can't tell somebody that this is urgent or you're going to miss out, because the reality of it is it's not urgent. It's an email offer. So we got to calm down. So it has to be a much more subtle urgency. What we are seeing perform incredibly well, like phenomenal, is some sort of acknowledgement, whether it's B2B or B2C, some form of acknowledgement that the offer that's in the email is related to what's going on. What I mean by that is I'm not talking about these emails that are going out that says a message from our CEO and it's like a manifesto
Right,
about what a
right.
company's doing. None of those. But the emails that are going out, and again, it doesn't matter if you're B2B or B2C, in the subject line, relating your offer to what's going on, where maybe you're saying, are you staying at home? The question mark, and that could be your subject line. Or, work from home products, whatever it is, as it, in some way, shape, or form, that you are tying in your offer to what's going on. And the reason it's generating, and I'm talking about an additional 50% increase in open rate, is nobody wants to be the fool that buys something, whether it's buying it as a business professional or buying it as a consumer. Nobody wants to be the fool that's not getting the super duper deal, because right now everybody knows on the planet you're going to get the best deal you've ever gotten, because every company is trying to get anything they can into their sales pipeline because the economy's falling apart. So if you're able to say this deal is somehow tied to what's going on, you feel as a buyer that, hey, I'm getting the very best deal possible. If your email is the status quo and it was very similar to what you sent out before the crisis, you're not getting the response because everyone's like, well, they're not giving me the super duper offer, so I'm going on to the next guy who is. So this idea of relating that your offer is aware of what's going on is how people are driving results right now, and it's working phenomenally well.
I have found, and I don't know if you found this just as a consumer, that the messaging in email during COVID has been worse than any other channel. It seems like everybody has done a really good job. Brands have done a better job with other channels, even on social, kind of showing how they care or don't care than email has. Email seems to be the one that stands out the most to me right now with where people are messing up that messaging is part of it. And I know it's not, necessarily an email acquisition strategy, things that you and I talk about at conferences a lot, but to your point, creating some empathy and context within those emails, they fall flat all the time.
Well, I think what's gone on, it's been really interesting. Look, I think it's important that all the different brands, and literally everybody, has sent out their big long email about what it is that their company is doing. We're open, we're not open, we're okay, we're not okay, and everyone sent out the really long message from some person in their senior leadership, and great. It's almost like when you get something in the mail from your insurance company that you never read that's 20 pages. Okay, so fine, you sent that out,
Mm-hmm.
but now that was last week.
Yeah.
This week, what are you sending out? And unfortunately, what we're seeing is inbox activity is way up. It's up like 25%. And that means that the inbox activity is not how many emails you're getting. Inbox activity is the percentage of people that are actually going in their inbox and checking their email. Inbox activity is up 25%. Open rates on B2B and B2C emails overall are up about 10% over the norm. And this is when you remove virus-related messages. But the killer to me is that email volume is down when you remove virus-related messages. So we have a situation where people are in their inbox more because they have a lot of time on their hands. They're opening up emails more because they're interested in things, trying to be productive. And marketers are so nervous about what they're sending out that they're sending out less. And they're missing a really good opportunity to be in front of people that are looking to engage.
Agreed, but are they looking to buy, which is what most of them are wanting to send messages about?
It's not, I agree with you. It's not the time to send out something unless you have something very relevant. You're sending out something to set up your work from home office or something like that.
True.
It's not the time to get the sale. Okay. It's not the time to get the sale, but can you as a marketer, and I don't care who you are, the weirdest B2B guy, consumer guy, it doesn't matter. Can you send out content where, number one, you can get people engaging, you get people opening and clicking, right? Can you get people going to your website, signing up for other free things? You have to come up with whatever the free thing is that your organization can give now and to be able to build that dialogue for the future. But to not be engaging now is an absolute crime. And I will tell you, the best thing you could also do as a marketer is work on re-engagement campaigns now to people that really haven't been opening or clicking on your emails in the past, because they are going back and opening up more. Give them free stuff. Give them, here's the top 5 things you could do at home to better yourself, or whatever content you want to give. Get them engaged, but don't stop sending. Mm-hmm. That's not helping anybody.
So you've worked in data for a company called Worldata for a lot of years. We were talking about you also have dealt with a lot of third-party data as well. How do you look at personalization today, especially with the way we address people, and people are leveraging a lot of lists, but sometimes people want to over-personalize, and then a lot of marketers don't realize that, data is pretty fluid. It's outdated. It's not always 100% or anywhere close, even with the best list. And I worked for one of the best data companies in the world, but it just seems like a lot of the personalization strategies are not done very well today. And I'm kind of curious how somebody that's an expert in this field looks at really leveraging that personalization for how we address our consumers.
Well, you hit the nail on the head that it really all starts out with the source, source of the data. And, to give your listeners a perspective, there's no exaggeration, over 120,000 different unique email lists that are available for a marketer to take advantage of. And I'm being conservative when I say that over 90% of them are complete garbage. Mm-hmm. Over 90% of them I would not want any client of mine to touch with a 10-foot pole, because they've either been collected in some sort of horrible way, or they're populated with information that when you go to use them for personalization, you're going to do more harm than good to your company. So the first thing you have to do is really make sure that you are leveraging data that's been collected properly and that has been audited properly. So when you go to leverage the information they have, it makes sense, right? And there's also lots of basic things, right? You want to make sure there are filters on your data, so that way you're not calling somebody a curse word as their first name, right? I mean, there are ways that you can make sure you're getting rid of the low-hanging fruit or whatnot. But the things that are working the best in terms of personalization is, of course, using first name does really well. Using first name in the subject line does really, really well. Geography, putting the geography in your messaging does really well. What people want, what a recipient wants, is to know that what they are opening is for them and not just for everybody. And whether that's subconscious or not, when you see information about yourself, you are more interested. The irony of that, though, is when we do personalization with the first name, it does really well. When you include somebody's last name, it does horrible, and the unsubscribe rate, the remove rate, goes through the roof. I always think it's so funny that the recipient, do they actually think that they only know your first name, the marketer?
Yeah.
They definitely know your whole name. But for some reason, when you see your whole name, you get upset as a recipient. And it's the funniest metric to me. And it's something that, as marketers, we have to be aware of these little things, because that's where things go in the garbage. I always tell people, with email marketing, there is no silver bullet. There's no one thing that you're going to do that's going to be change everything. It's a series of little things and little things that continually change over time, and you have to keep up with it all. And personalization is exactly one of those things.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Jay Schwedelson. But to borrow that, but I saw something that you posted not that long ago on LinkedIn that I thought I'd love you to kind of recap and regurgitate, if you will. But it's the tip that will increase your open rates the most.
Yeah, so this is funny because the name of the game is getting in the inbox. So many times when we go to our email tracking reports, right? I don't care if you use MailChimp or use Eloqua or you use Pardot or Marketo. I don't care what platform you use, okay? When you go to your email tracking, the first thing you look at is your deliverability rate, right? And you see, oh, I got a 98% deliverability rate. I feel good about myself. That metric is the wrong metric. The metric we have to focus on is, what is my inboxing rate, which a lot of people don't look at. And on average, marketers' inbox rates are about 75%, which means 25% are going to the junk folder, which is terrible. And the game is, how do we get more people into the inbox? The best way you can get into the inbox, the most important thing you can do, is when someone goes to your site and they buy something or they register for your newsletter, whatever they do, you have it set up to send them an automated email, an autoresponder email, a trigger email that says, thank you for registering. And you automatically do that. And most of us don't think about that email. But that email is the most important email any marketer ever sends. And the reason being is, when that email goes from your company to this person, this new person who's never gotten an email from you before, it goes to their mailbox. And when it pops into their mailbox, if that person opens that email, it's telling that email client, it's telling your email system that, hey, I like email from this company. The next time they send me an email, put it in my inbox again because I just opened up this email that came to me for the first time. If you don't open up that autoresponder email that you get, then the email system, your email client says, I don't think this guy likes getting emails from this new company. So the next email that comes in, we're going to put it in the junk folder. And it's at that moment that your Gmail inbox, that your Outlook 365, that whatever it is learning whether or not in the future where that email should go. So what's critically important is when you send that autoresponder, it can't just say thank you very much. It has to say thank you, and here is an amazing gift for you. Thank you, here's $10 off. Thank you, here's a free dog. And please open up this email, right? Get that email opened up, whatever you have to do to incentivize that email getting opened up, because it is the linchpin to all future delivery with that individual. So we try to stress that as much as we can.
That's fantastic. Any other tips that you can think of that you'd like to drop?
Well, right now in the whole coronavirus world that we're living in, one of the other metrics that we've just actually seen this past week, which I think people should really consider for when they're sending out their email, is that emails being open, and this is the case actually for both B2B and B2C. It has always been that early morning, very early, like 8 a.m.-ish, has been the top peak for when people are opening up email, and maybe leading into 9 a.m. We're actually seeing that extended now through the day, where 12 p.m., 1 p.m., even all the way through until 8 p.m., we're seeing open rates be much higher. So I strongly encourage marketers right now to test having their emails delivered later and not necessarily first in the morning, because look, people are sleeping in later.
Exactly.
Whoever's doing distance learning, they're getting their kids ready to do that in the morning. They're not checking their email as early as they used to. So I would think about that in this COVID world that we're living in.
That's a great point. So with B2B and B2C campaigns, you live in both spaces. Anything structurally different that people really need to think about when building out an email campaign for one or the other? I mean, I know we're always targeting the message to go to a person, but how do you look at structuring those any differently?
Well, a few big differences. Number one, the B2B data is far more expensive than B2C data, and that goes without saying, no doubt. But the biggest difference is that B2B is much more of a content play. It's very rare that you see a B2B organization trying to actually sell product via email. What they're trying to do is fill up the funnel. So you're only as good as the content that you're promoting in B2B. B2C, while I would love good content, it really is much more about the offer in terms of discount, free shipping, a free trial, whatever it may be. So you're really talking about content versus some sort of selling type of offer between the B2B and B2C world. The other piece is that you actually have a greater threshold to send out more of a multi-touch program on B2B. So whereas in consumer, for a given offer, you could max out at maybe a three emails for one particular offer over 2 weeks. B2B, we see that cycle being a little bit longer, could even be 3 weeks, and you can get up as high as 6 or 7 touches for one offer without any type of frustration from the base that you're emailing to. So they are different for sure. And you just have to kind of play through all the metrics.
Yeah, well, do you tend to look at more imagery or kind of borrowing off of a friend of ours, adding colorful's not the right word, but if I was going to use more behavioral science techniques, do you tend to see that more in the B2C space type emails, maybe where people can be a more liberal, if you will, with pictures than in B2B?
Yeah, and I think this will change over the next 12 to 18 months, but certainly, obviously, consumer, you could do a lot. Animated GIFs do really
Exactly.
well. You don't have to worry about, them loading or any of that stuff. Emojis in the subject line give you a boost. You could do the cutesy stuff in B2C. In the B2B world, you're not going to see a lot of
No.
animated GIFs. You're not going to see a lot of emojis. But I will tell you that now that Outlook has really changed its ability to handle different formats, you can now have animated GIFs, you can have emojis, and I'll tell you that it gives a boost on the B2B side as well. So I think over the next 12 to 18 months, you're going to see more of a blend of how the two different worlds kind of look similar.
Jay, you live in Boca, in Palm Beach County. So
Yep.
Palm Beach County is known for having thousands of blacktip reef sharks, one of my
Yeah.
favorite sharks, doing migration there off the coast. I ask this of every guest that's been on my show, A Shark's Perspective. What is your favorite kind of shark and why?
Wow. So I'm not the manliest man. So let me think about this for a second here. I think that I only have one shark I know anything about. So I've tried to take my kids fishing, even though again I'm not the super manly dude. And we caught a bonnet. What was it called? Bonnet head
Yeah,
shark or a little hammerhead one. We caught that. We put it back in the water.
good.
And I felt at that moment, I felt like I had done something really good as a father. I felt very manly and very cool. And so I know nothing about sharks, but that is my favorite shark because I interacted with it.
Yeah, bonnethead is also known as a shovelhead. It's a small hammerhead, and they're really cute. But thank God you threw them back in. So,
Yeah,
Jay, it's a special time in my show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important questions that you're going to be asked today?
I'm ready.
All right,
Let's do it.
all right, here we go. Number 1, Hotmail or Gmail?
Gmail all day.
Thank you. Number 2, sort of a media mix question for campaign performance. I'm going to pull 2 channels together. Email plus a social media campaign or email plus a direct mail campaign?
Email plus social, if it's done right, I think I don't really buy into the correlation. You get a direct mail piece and then you get an email. You're like, oh, yeah, I got that direct mail piece, or vice versa. So email and social kind of brings it together better for me. So I would go that route.
Number 3, a B2B email campaign or a B2C email campaign? Which is your preference?
I live in both worlds,
Yeah.
and to me, it's all about the content. If you have a really good industry report or white paper or webinar, B2B will kill it. On the consumer side, if you have some sort of awesome discount or awesome freemium, you could do great. But I live in the middle on that one.
Number 4, this is a good odd question for an email person. Spam or baloney?
Well, I prefer bologna. Of course, I've eaten spam, but I don't do spam, so I'll have to be in the bologna camp. But if you haven't tried spam, it's not that bad.
No, it's not that bad. It's the state meat of Hawaii or whatever. So
Right.
number
Right.
5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Gosh, I feel like there's a right answer to this, but I'm cornbread all day,
Okay.
and I hope that's right because I like that.
South Florida's never a bad place to have some cornbread and Cuban food. So, Jay, where can people find out more about you, find the websites, keep up with your thought leadership in the space, and more?
Awesome. Yeah. So my website is Worldata, and it's 1D, WORLDATA.com. We have a resources tab with webinars, infographics, all sorts of stuff. It's also my Twitter handle, at worlddata.com with 1D. And I encourage everybody to use subjectline.com. It's free. There's a free app that goes with it. You get a lot of free good information, and that's where I'm at.
Awesome. Jay, thank you so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
It was fantastic. Thanks, Shark.
So there was my conversation with Jay Schwedelson, the president and CEO of Worldata and a member of the board of directors of the Direct Marketing Association. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from my conversation with him. First, email is such a great workhorse. We rarely get excited about it in acquisition campaigns, but we should. It also, when triggered in coordination with other channels, can deliver even much higher rates. And as Jay said, the CPAs have gotten lower, unlike paid search and social. But just as important in any campaign is setting expectations. It works much better with your first-party data list than in third-party campaigns, where you would get, often for the most part, blind emails that don't perform as well with most audiences. But with any good offer, you need to create urgency and exclusivity to increase those open rates, as well as just some form of acknowledgement related to what's going on in the world, like with the pandemic, and how your offer relates to a customer, whether it's B2B or B2C. And when you send those, use data from the right sources, especially if you're trying to personalize. He reminds us that first name in the subject line helps people who want to know that it's for them and not just for everybody. When you include last name as well, it does horrible. I'll add a reminder that you have to remember with any data list, even your first party, your data is fluid and it changes. So be careful when you personalize and frequently scrub your list and clean them up. You don't want to risk offending the right recipients. Second, I love talking about the frequency of emails that brands send. Jay did an excellent job of clarifying something on this as well. Marketers aren't sending out enough emails when they have an offer and segmenting that data out to make certain it's relevant. And not just sending out one email for one offer, but multiple emails to help close the deal. He mentions 3 emails in 2 weeks. The problem many face, though, is sending out too many non-relevant emails to unfamiliar audiences, and that drags down the rest of your email campaign. Also, the automation of emails when trying to reacquire customers is absolutely deplorable. I can tell you that firsthand. And I can give you hundreds of examples of not even spammed emails, but emails that do a horrible job of trying to re-engage or reacquire a customer that's left. So take a look at your frequency and do it now, please. The frequency of communications due to bad automation and practice creates such a risk, and it's disrespectful to the relationship you have with such an important reader in your email channel. It's a great, intimate form of communication, so don't blow it. But whether it's pre or post-COVID emails, whether you're trying to sell someone something or not, work on continuously building that dialogue for future campaigns, even if it's just to help with re-engagement campaigns. Third, he brings up a great tip to increase your open rates with the name of the game of getting into the inbox. Don't focus on the deliverability rate. He wants you to focus on inboxing. And how do we get more people into the inbox? When they register, buy, do whatever, the email you automatically send is a thank you email of some sort. If that person opens that email, it then helps keep it from being recognized as spam. If you don't open that first one, then your email client may think that you don't like that email from them, and it may keep it from being in the inbox. So do whatever you can to get them to open that first one up. We didn't get into too many details in this, but think of a must verify your email first as a tactic and example we see so often. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time. God bless all of you. Stay healthy, my friends. Send me an email and join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.